in general, when it comes to investing, as investors, we can fall into one or the other category. We are either passive investors or active investors. And it's not necessarily a binary thing that you are either totally active or totally passive. When we speak of an active investor, for example, it means that this is someone who wants to be actively involved in the investment they've made. So they are actually contributing, whether strategically or operationally, to the business's goals, objectives as an active investor. A passive investor is someone who may own the asset, may make the investment, but they are not involved either strategically or operationally. And that's where the passive component comes in.
Hello, welcome to the Great Return Podcast, where we have conversations rooted in wealth creation and African development for and by people of African heritage, both at home and abroad. I am Lordy Emen, your host, and our mission at TGR Africa is to contribute to making people of Black heritage and the African continent prosperous through business and investments. Today, we are discussing passive income opportunities, how diasporans can generate passive income streams in Ghana. And for that, we have Ajewe Chanayere from TGR Africa, aka AG. As usual, for for a few occasions now, we've had him here. So welcome, AG.
Thank you.
Yeah. So to set us off, talking about sort of passive income, what is the profile of a passive investor if somebody is looking to invest? I understand there's the passive one and there's the active one. So what is the profile of a passive investor?
Yeah, so in general, when it comes to investing, as investors, we can fall into one or the other category. We are either passive investors or active investors. And it's not necessarily a binary thing that you are either totally active or totally passive. When we speak of an active investor, for example, it means that this is someone who wants to be actively involved in the investment they've made. So they are actually contributing, whether strategically or operationally, to the business's goals, objectives as an active investor. A passive investor is someone who may own the asset, may make the investment, but they are not involved either strategically or operationally. And that's where the passive component comes in. And for the most part, it's passive because all they want to do is to primarily have oversight. So a passive investor is mainly concerned about being able to have oversight over their investments to make sure that things are moving as how they're meant to be doing, and to also be checking up on performance, how their portfolio is performing, all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So that is really the main distinction between active and passive investors.
So is to say they don't, a passive investor doesn't necessarily want to get into the nitty-gritty of everything to do with the investment. They just want to put in their money and know what they are making and how generally it is doing.
Yeah, so a passive investor, they want to know a few main things. They want to know, what is my expected return of investment? They want to know what is the investment guidelines or philosophy of how the particular investment is going to be carried out. Because a passive investor, for the most part, is able to be passive because they often outsource the actual investing aspect to
Right.
either an individual or an entity.
Mm.
So they're only really concerned with a few things. Okay, what is the general investment strategy and do I agree with it? Number one. Number two, I want to know what is the expected returns and the prior track record. And then three, do I have the capacity to oversee my investments? And if these three things are in place, then the next thing is how much they want to invest
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
how much risk they are comfortable with taking.
Mm.
But that is really that is all a passive investor will really concern themselves with.
Right. Right. So, what are the pros and cons of either an active or a passive investor, do you think?
So if we start with an active investor, the reason why someone would choose to be an active investor is because they feel that they may have some kind of strategic value that they can bring to that particular investment they've made.
Mm-hmm.
We see a lot of active investment, for example, with angel investors, where they wouldn't just necessarily give money, but they will contribute their time, expertise, and leverage their network because they believe through their involvement, the investment will actually become profitable. So that is some of the reasons why someone adopts the active investor standpoint. A lot of the time too, the benefits is about the returns they can make. Because an active investor will also tend to be someone who is a sophisticated investor. They are competent in investing. They know how to evaluate an investment opportunity and decide for themselves whether it's good or bad. I mean, for most people, they don't have the knowledge and skill set to be able to evaluate opportunities, even though it's been presented to them. I mean, sometimes that is why some diasporans get caught out here, because there is a process to how you evaluate opportunities. And for an active investor, because they have that capacity, they don't necessarily tend to outsource their investments to a third party, which means they are not paying management fees and they are not paying compensation for performance. So all of that they get to keep in their investment. So in general, active investing does tend to offer the additional value of higher returns because of your strategic involvement and because you're not actually outsourcing the responsibility. And from more of on a negative side, the active aspect means that yes, it's going to consume a lot of your time, energy, and effort.
Yeah.
And within a Ghanaian context, sometimes that can be challenging. Whereas if we look at a passive investor, the benefits of a passive investor is you don't have to be competent in investing to a high degree because you are not going to be responsible for evaluating opportunities on a case-by-case basis. So it allows a person to live their 9 to 5 and have their investments being taken care of. It's also it's also much more stable, and it's much more accessible to someone whom, again, they are not in a position where they can be actively involved.
Yeah.
Especially when we're talking within an African context. To be an active investor in Africa, beyond the investing aspect, there's a whole decision making. You have to you literally will have to uproot your whole life. There's a lot to it.
Yeah.
So it becomes challenging to be an active investor unless you're super committed
Yeah.
in that way. But as a passive investor, which most of us fall under, I mean, in the investing world in general, there's a reason why you have investment companies like BlackRock and Vanguard and these kind of things, because they understand that the general public don't have the time, energy, effort, nor investment competence to man their investments. So the idea is that they create investment products that you can access
Yeah. I
in
do
a
think
passive way.
the investment competence is a big it's a big
Oh yeah, I
thing.
mean
So,
that's a huge aspect. But you see, even with a competence aspect, when it comes to evaluating, there is no, it's not actually, there's no right or wrong
exactly. It's
in evaluating an opportunity, because when you're looking at, so there's the technical skill of,
yeah,
like, for example, if I want to buy a business or invest in a business, I need to be able to forecast its future cash flows.
yeah.
That requires a lot of different assumptions you have to make.
Mm-hmm.
So it's beyond the technical aspect. There is a whole other component to it that makes
Yeah.
it tricky for the average person. And in general, most people, even being a passive or active investor, has nothing to do with how much money you have. It has everything to do with, a lot of the time, is effort.
It's effort,
Because
yeah.
for most people, it's more attractive to be a passive investor if you can calculate that this investment is going to make me X, Y, and Z returns on a consistent basis, and management fees to the third party is going to be this on an annual basis. And when I subtract, my upside is still high.
Hard.
So on a practical level, why would you do the laborious work
Yes, yeah.
if it's like
Exactly.
property management?
Yeah, yeah.
You see,
Because it also frees up your time to do other things that,
yeah,
if it is money you want to generate, it frees up your time to do something like that. Different things that will actually bring in money.
yeah,
And if
exactly.
you
We're
just want
talking,
your
yeah.
free time to, you have your free time. So I suppose, yeah, that way, yeah, you're weighing the cost of your time versus the return that
Yeah, I mean, even at the highest level, so a hedge fund is an example of an investment company.
Mm.
Hedge funds tend to raise money from what they call sophisticated investors, which means they actually know everything about investing. They just don't want to do because investing is primarily about using money to make money. The money is supposed to work for you. So the more you're involved, then it defeats the point.
yeah.
So even at the highest level, being a passive investor, it's more of a luxury if you can. Active investing is yes, you can make higher returns, but when you weigh up with the level of effort involved, you see. So being a passive investor is not a reflection even of your competency
Not necessarily.
or
Yeah.
how much
Okay.
money you have.
Yeah.
It's actually a very effective way to let your money make money for you.
Yeah. Yeah. So why is it that most diasporans would fall under the category of passive investors? I think from all that we've said, people already will deduce some of the reasons why most diasporans will fall under the passive investors profile. But why would they?
Yeah, so I mean, put diasporans aside, just globally in the world, most people, 80% of people fall under the passive aspect of things.
Right.
So it's no different when it comes to diasporans. But yes, we've highlighted in general the benefits of passive and active investing. But within a particularly an African context, it is a lot more practical that people are passive investors, because everything else I've discussed, but there is the big aspect of access to information is very tricky. If you want to properly invest in Africa and you don't have the boots on the ground, it's very difficult to trust the information you're receiving. The geographical barrier itself makes it extremely difficult to be able to monitor your investment and have that oversight and all those kind of things. And again, you're talking about people literally uprooting their lives, which for a lot of people, it's not the type of decision that could be made lightly. So for most diasporans within the context of Africa, and then the harsh realities too is that most of us are not amateur investors.
Yeah.
So a lot of us need that guidance and support.
Mm-hmm.
So being a passive investor as a diasporan is a very easy, it's an easily accessible way to invest in Africa in a way that can achieve your investment goals and objectives,
Yeah.
but doing it in a way that's actually practical. Because for a long time, one of the reasons why there's so many barriers to diaspora investment on the continent is because there are no third parties that are reliable and trusted that can facilitate it. And that's the gap where at TG Africa we feel is that what we are trying to do for diasporans who want to invest is to be that third party to help facilitate that.
Yeah.
So investing in Africa is not a matter of you having to make drastic life decisions. It goes back to answering very simple questions. What is your risk tolerance? How much are you looking to invest? What are your motives? What are you trying to achieve with your investment? Are you seeking financial freedom? Are you seeking retirement planning? Are you thinking more about legacy and generational wealth building? Or are you just mainly looking to make impact? Then thirdly, okay, what investment pathways suit you based on your profile? And then finally, it's about, do you understand the investment guidelines and the philosophy of this investment product or this pathway? And do you have a capacity to remotely monitor your investment? If you can answer those, if these are the main questions as a passive investor, a diasporan just needs to answer. And the good thing is that over the years, what we've done is being able to build that architecture to actually allow passive investing to take place. Because unfortunately, if we leave the gap, yes, people like me and you and people within our network are ready to come here and be boots on the ground, but most of our fellow brothers and sisters, it's not a practical thing.
No.
So it's really important that as an organization, we are able to make investing in Africa as easy, stress-free, and effortless as possible. Because even globally, most people tend to prefer passive investing. So if we don't create passive investment opportunities for diasporans, we are not going to see the injection of diaspora capital coming in, because at the moment, we are already sending money to Africa. Unfortunately, the form we are sending it in is via remittances. So it means it's not money that is making an impact.
Yeah.
Whereas if we want to convert some of that remittance into investment-led, we are going to have to lay the foundations to make passive investing a real possibility for the average diasporan.
Yeah. Yeah. So we understand that most diasporans will fall under the category of passive investors. And we know the benefits of being a passive investor. That's what we've talked about so far. I would like us to discuss what that passive investment actually is.
Yeah. So like you said, we've highlighted what a passive investor is.
Yeah.
And a passive investment is, in simple terms, an investment where you can generate income from it without you actually being involved strategically or operationally.
Yeah.
Purely just having an oversight capacity. So it's an investment opportunity that allows you to actually let your money work for you without you directly exchanging time, energy, and effort to make that return. So you could be sleeping, you could be running, you can be on holiday or whatever, and that investment is generating income because it's a passive investment.
Yeah.
Whereas an active investment is an investment where you have to be involved. If you're not involved, nothing is moving because you are actually driving that ship. You see, a good example of active investment is like when you decide to start your business. It's a form of investing, but it's an active form of investing because you are the captain of that ship.
Yeah.
You over a period of time can systemize the business to become a income generating asset, but it takes time. So yes, a lot of the time entrepreneurs transition from being active investors into passive investors, but that's a process. But when you're talking about passive investing, you're looking to invest in opportunities that already offer passivity, not opportunities that require you to be, or for you to even be instrumental.
So again, as I think people might already deduce from what we've discussed so far, but why would passive investment be more attractive to diaspora investors?
Yeah, because on a practical level, it's very difficult to be an active investor. And unfortunately, that is the major barrier which is stopping a lot of us from investing on the continent. Because I think people are slowly starting to know that, yes, Africa is that next major growth region of the world. And we are seeing all the signs that there's a lot of wealth going to be generated in Africa. And I think a lot of diasporans want to be involved, but the practicalities is the issue. And in general, the practicalities are an issue globally. That's why you have so many investment companies. That's why you have so many exchange traded funds, mutual funds, and all these kind of things, where simply you're just putting your money into the fund. So the geographical aspect, the is a huge thing. Again, most of us are amateur investors. For a lot of us, it's probably the first time we are even thinking about investing and all these kind of things. And in general, the challenging, tricky nature of Ghana, of Africa, and a developing economy is that it's not advisable from a diasporan perspective to either do business or invest on your own, because you can't project to assume that the environment here functions like the environment that you're used to abroad. So even though we can help people make passive investments here, how we are able to do it is we're having to develop a whole structure and system in place to make it possible in a way that in the West, we wouldn't even have to put in all these measures in place because we are not in the same economies. So it's actually not very realistic to invest here if, first of all, you are not going to be an active investor. And second of all, if you're not going to be an active investor, which means you're coming here and making things happen, then realistically speaking, having an opportunity to be a passive investor is much more practical. It's much more accessible. And that's the main thing. It's about the practicality and accessibility. And that is why passive investments are really the way forward for us diasporans.
A lot of us.
Yes.
So again, in terms of the capital needed for passive investments versus active investments, I would say for passive investments, it is more accessible to most people.
Oh, yes. You've highlighted a very important aspect, is that another advantage of passive investing is it democratizes access to investing, because us diasporans fall into various socioeconomic structures. Active investing, you're limited to the investment opportunity and the capital you need to tap into it. But with passive investing, it's really about your risk tolerance. And from your risk tolerance, the options are available. So if you have $1,000 or 1 million, it doesn't affect your passivity. So that's another good advantage of passive investing, why it's beneficial to us diasporans, because again, as a diasporan, maybe if you're living in the West and you have $1,000, that's not, I don't think there's nothing of significance you can invest in with $1,000. Whereas $1,000 here travels a lot further. So you might think, oh, about me, how can I invest in Africa? Because I'm just earning this. I only have $200, $500. At most, I can invest $600 in a year. That's the point. As a passive investor, there are opportunities, because passive investing covers the full range of how much capital anyone has available to them.
Yeah. So before we talk more on the opportunities, what we are actually saying is there's a we are saying generally invest in Africa, right? And we're giving the breakdown of how you can invest. You can either be here doing stuff, or you can be part of a group doing stuff here that you're not always here, or you can actually just look at passive investing where you don't have to do much. You just have to make decisions about certain elements, and then you pick what you want to invest. And not only are you not needing to spend much time on it, but you can invest no matter how small you think your monthly disposable income is that you can use on investing. So again, we've said over and over again, now is the time to start doing such things, no matter how little you think it is. When you start now, over years, you
Yeah,
actually
so
make.
yeah, exactly. I'm glad you highlighted these things. So I think it's important we let diasporans know that investing in Africa has nothing to do with how much money you have,
Mm,
because the advantage we already have is that our money travels a lot further
yeah,
in Africa than it, at least for now,
yeah,
than it does in the Western world. Now, the thing is that because our money travels further, it means we need to remove the comparison we make, because a lot of people look at Africa within the same context as how the West works. Yes, in the US, in the UK, Europe, I mean, it's not much you can do with $1,000, for example. But like we said, here there's a lot you can do with $1,000.
yeah,
And so it's important people know that investing on the continent is not a thing about how much money you need. It's really a matter of what are your objectives for wanting to become a diaspora investor. What is your motives? Are you trying to set up your kids for the future? Are you thinking more about having sources of income for when you want to retire? Are you thinking about wanting to make an impact? Or are you interested in financial freedom? Do you want to create an investment portfolio that generates enough income to allow you to maintain your current existence, for example, without you actually being dependent on your 9 to 5? So becoming a diaspora investor is not about how much money you have. It's about what your goals and objectives and priorities are, the timeline you're willing to give yourself, and also who and which organizations you go to help facilitate your investment for you.
yeah,
That's the main thing about what it means to be a diaspora investor.
yeah,
And that is the beauty about the opportunity that has opened up to us in Africa, is that it's almost democratized access to investing,
yeah,
in a way that as diasporans, we don't have the opportunity in the West to do.
yeah, yeah. Um, we we say so. We've said it before. Whatever you're putting in Africa, sometimes you can have 10, 20, 30% returns. And this is the beauty of the time that we live in now in terms of investing in Africa, is that the returns are a lot higher because of so many things that we've talked about in other episodes, such as the risks and all that. But now is a time, because in time, Africa too, as we develop, will get to a point where the returns will slow down.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Yes,
So,
that is the key thing. So timing,
yes.
that is the other thing that is very important as diaspora investors. I really think people need to understand that they have a 10-year window. After these 10 years, it will be like investing in Facebook now.
Yes.
It will be like investing in Tesla now.
Yeah.
Tesla now is like the stock price, for example, is already overvalued,
Yeah.
which basically means that the smart money is selling now. You see, the
Yeah.
smart money sells when the growth has already taken place. The smart money invests before the growth actually happens.
Yeah.
But most, again, unsophisticated amateur investors, they only start investing when the hype has already happened.
Yeah.
And they're the ones who the smart money sells to.
Two. Mm-hmm.
So in the financial markets, they call the general public the retail investors. And then on the other side, you've got sophisticated investors or accredited investors. And that's what they mean by smart money. So what I'm trying to explain to diasporans is the smart money is already investing now.
Yeah. Yeah.
10 years from now, the appreciation would have taken place. So whatever returns come after that would not be as attractive as now, which means it will be very difficult to achieve your wealth generation objectives in a shorter time period.
Yeah.
The more you leave it,
Yes.
you see.
Yeah. So we are saying the little you have now goes, the growth is very high. So you might think it's nothing, but if you start putting in now, you'll be surprised what you make in 10 years' time. It's not to say people who invest in 10 years' time won't make money. People are still making money in the West. But that's, again, is about the same thing. We're just saying the terrain now is the best time to start, actually, no matter how small it is, to be putting in the money, because there's a lot of the rate of return is higher. And then when it compounds,
Exactly.
you are able to meet your target of whatever it is you're trying to invest for if you start now.
Yes.
So I now want us to focus on actual passive investment opportunities available to diaspora investors. We start with investing in the African financial markets. Why is this a good passive investment opportunity to generate passive income, do you think?
Okay, so if we lay a foundation, all the companies that are represented in any financial market represents the very best of the best of that particular economy's um, business environment.
Exactly.
So, for example, in the West, they have the S&P 500. In the US, those companies are responsible for like 80% of all GDP that's generated in America.
Right.
So when you are investing in financial markets, you are basically investing in the very best that that particular economy has to offer. And because they represent such a high percentage of the GDP, when you invest in financial markets, what you're actually doing is you're exposing yourself to benefit from GDP growth in general. Everyone always asks themselves, why do the rich get richer and the poor get poorer? The rich get richer and the poor get poorer, not because there's some nefarious things going on or whatever, or that it's because they're corrupt or whatever, or life isn't fair. It's because we live in a capitalist system. Growth is fundamental to capitalism. GDP is fundamental to capitalism. But in a capitalist system, inflation is also a component. We live in a system where you fall on one side or the other. So inflation is bad for some people, but it's also good for some people. Inflation is great if you're an asset owner because it means everything is going up. So what's happened over the past few years, even if you look at the Western markets, if you own a home, you're laughing. If you've bought bonds, if you've bought shares, you're laughing. Everything is at an all-time high. But if you're not an asset owner, you're on the other side of the fence. You're complaining because now the Ukraine thing already made inflation go up. Now there's this war making things going up. Most people feel like they are getting poorer and poorer, but there's a section of society that is getting richer and richer. And financial markets have always traditionally been a great source of long-term wealth preservation and creation in general. Because so when we tell people to invest in Africa's financial markets, what we're saying, if you followed what we've talked about, is that you are basically trying to take advantage of the future growth of Africa, which means that whatever wealth is going to be produced in Africa, if you are exposed to its financial markets, those companies are the ones that are going to be driving that growth. And if you look at Ghana, for example, you know, the GSE, which is the Ghanaian Stock Exchange, it returned like 70 something percent. Like,
That's
do
exactly.
you see?
Yeah.
Just last year alone. And right now, you can buy shares in companies like MTN for literally 3 cities. What's that in dollars? I don't even know if it's like it's like pence now, isn't it?
It's pennies, yeah.
You see, this is MTN, telecommunication giant. You see, but MTN is like, I don't know about America, so I know about the UK. MTN is like, is it BT?
BT.
Yeah, it's like British Telecommunications. That's where it's moving into. So imagine you own shares in BT 20 years ago, 30 years ago.
Yeah.
That is the opportunity that financial markets provide, just as a basic level. But why is it a passive investment opportunity? Because once you bought your shares, you don't have to concern yourself with the operations of the business. You don't have to go and sit in board meetings and develop the strategy for what MTN should do for next quarter or whatever. When you invest in financial markets, you're really just asking yourself basic questions. You're asking yourself, first of all, is this sector, what are the growing sectors? Number one. Also, what are the fastest growing companies within those sectors? And also, what has been the performance of these companies historically? And also in the future, does the trend seem like it's going? Outside of that, even at the professional level, that's the questions they are asking. Because even the professionals don't manage the businesses. So it's one of the most passive ways to invest and still build wealth. And right now, Africa's financial markets are the cheapest they will ever be.
Yeah.
You see, and because of that, is the best time to tap into it.
Okay, so I want us to look secondly at acquisition entrepreneurship. Again, why is this a good passive investment opportunity to generate passive income?
Yeah, so for those that may not know what acquisition entrepreneurship is, it's a form of entrepreneurship where you don't start a business, but you buy a pre-existing business. And with acquisition entrepreneurship, it actually offers dual pathways. So it's actually a pathway that is attractive to both active and passive investors. A lot of the time, people would buy a business to improve it so that it makes more money. So that's the active aspect of acquisition entrepreneurship. But on a very simple level, you can be a passive investor via acquisition entrepreneurship by simply buying a well-established business that has a proven track record with stable and predictable cash flows. And on a basic level, just like how people become landlords, where you can own your property, but outsource the responsibility of the management of the property to a property management company. For example, at TG Africa, we have the structure in place where we can help a person buy a business, and then we can help that person oversee that business. So fundamentally, all that person will be doing is getting reports about what's going on in the business and receiving the income that they want to take out of the business. Because this is not a new business. This is not up and coming business. This is a well established. It's existed for minimum 10 years. Has a strong market share. It has stable cash flows. More going forward, they're predictable, and overall macros look good for it going forward. You see, and these opportunities exist because you remember we talked about the fact that entrepreneurs start out as active investors,
Yeah.
but they can finish as passive investors. So these opportunities are available because here in Ghana, there's lots of very successful businessmen and women who, unfortunately, their children, they don't trust to pass it on to their children because a lot of the time,
Maybe their children are not interested in the business.
yeah,
It's not their pathway. It's not what they want to do. They are not as passionate. They are into other things. And some too might not even have children to pass it on to. Some too, they've gotten to a point where they've invested a lot of time and
yes, they
effort
want to
in.
cash out.
They just want to cash out so they can actually enjoy the fruits of their labor.
Yes, so they, they are active investing. Now is how this is their cash out. But for you, the acquisition entrepreneur, it's your opportunity to buy an asset that you know what you're going to be getting every year from it.
It's already generating.
It's already generating income already.
Yeah. So what about real estate trust for as a way of getting passive income?
Yeah, so they're known as REITs. It's real estate investment trust.
Okay.
A real estate investment trust is basically it's like a fund where different people have put their money in, and the company uses that money to purchase properties with tenants, and they basically collect the income and they distribute it to the investors of that particular real estate trust based on the level of percentage of what they've invested in. So if I've invested 20% in the real estate, if I have 20% of the total pool in that real estate investment trust, then I'll be getting 20% of whatever rental income is coming from the real estate assets that that particular trust has in its portfolio. And in Ghana here, there's a couple companies that actually provide real estate investment trusts. And again, we know real estate is a very hot topic. A lot of people are being told, get into real estate, get into real estate. But people never highlight that it's actually very impractical to be a real estate investor as a diasporan, because it falls again under the same challenges that we discuss.
Yeah.
So if we want to encourage people to get into real estate, that's great, but you're leaving a whole
disenfranchising or a big portion of
because how many
diasporans
people are realistically have the time
and the money
time, money, all of that effort to source out land or source out a property? First, it's even the analysis you have to do to even evaluate where to build or where to buy.
Yeah.
It's not again, that's where the competency aspect comes in. You know, I feel like what we see is people promoting what people can buy, but we don't really give a lot of diasporans information about being a real estate investor.
Yeah.
Yes, if you just want to buy a house, you want a retirement home or a holiday home, yeah, that's a separate ball game.
Yeah.
So let's separate that from telling people to be real estate investors.
Yeah.
Because the harsh reality is that it's just like any form of investing here in Ghana. Active investing is never going to be suitable or attractive to the wider diaspora population. Why? Because the global population, most people are passive investors. So if you're telling someone to become a real estate, invest in real estate, but what you are basically saying is uproot your life, come here, do all the due diligence, figure out where you should even buy the property, buy the land, then get the contractors, all of that, build it, then find the tenant, manage that. All that's active investing.
Yeah.
That's no different from telling someone to come here and start a business. It's the same ballgame.
Yeah.
But a real estate investment trust gives you the freedom to be able to benefit from Ghana's booming real estate sector in a way that is practical. Because, like I said, within a real estate investment trust, you are deciding, you would already know certain information before you invest in the trust. Obviously, it's important that you are investing with the right companies, but assuming that is already there, you want to know, okay, what is this particular trust like? What are they paying out every year? You see, you basically want to know that information, and you want to know basically you as the investor how much you want to invest and put into it. Once you've answered those questions, do you really care what underlying real estate assets are there? It's not that important, because the real estate assets are professionally being overseen and managed, and you're collecting your rental income. You're not the one that's chasing up tenants, getting them to pay whatever. You see, the infrastructure has been put in place so you can invest and make your returns. And real estate investment trusts are very popular in the West as well. It's not a new thing. You see. Again, the financial industry, most of it is set up to support passive investing.
And again, real estate is another one where if you want to do it alone, most people can't afford it.
Yes, sorry. So I meant to add as well is that I didn't even know that to even get mortgages, that even the diaspora mortgage is currently available. It's not available to African Americans. It's only available to, what do they
It's
call
like continental.
Yes, it's only available to Ghanaian diasporans, basically. So if you're not a Ghanaian diasporan, you can't ask. So, but look at the prices of real estate here: $400, $500, $300,000. How many diasporans have $300K in cash sat there?
To come in.
So the barriers to entry as a real estate investor is almost
high.
It's too high. But with a real estate investment trust, maybe that trust minimum capital requirement might be $1,000.
Yes.
You see,
you are in.
You are in. So real estate investment trust democratizes access to investing in the real estate market here. Because at the moment, unfortunately, if you don't have 300K or 100K plus, you're not going to be able to get in the game.
Okay, so there's also digital farming, which can be an excellent passive investment opportunity. So could you talk us through what is digital farming and how can it be a passive investment?
Yeah, so outside of real estate, one of the areas where the real wealth is going to come from is in the agri sector. I don't think you can be a diasporan investor and not have some exposure to either real estate or agri, because even the African Development Bank has predicted that Africa's future billionaires are primarily going to come from the agricultural sector. And realistically speaking, it's not only what Africa needs and where development starts from, but it's the only area Africa actually has a strategic advantage. So getting into agri is a must if you are serious about really building wealth. Now, the challenge, unfortunately, it's like the real estate thing. Everyone tells you agri this, but you run a poultry farm. How has your experience gone with that? And do you think it's practical for most people to come here and start an agri business?
No, it's not that. No, it's not.
You see, so what is digital farming? Digital farming, in a nutshell, is a way to actually invest in the agri sector and be a farmer, but doing it digitally and remotely. So how does it work? It works by having, let's say, TG Africa as the boots on the ground organization. You are interested in tomatoes or crops or cash crops and all those kind of things. Rather than you uprooting your life, coming here, starting a business, finding staff to recruit or whatever, an organization like TG Africa already has the structure in place. So it's more a matter of you deciding how much you want to invest, what you particularly want to farm, and then again, it's about having the measures in place to play that oversight through a third party like an organization like TG Africa or some other organization that does digital farming. Basically, digital farming is a growing trend across Africa because, again, the practicalities of farming is not for everyone, but the returns are for everyone. So the idea is that you can digitally farm by having a third-party organization that is actually doing the farming.
Yeah.
You're just doing the investing.
Investing.
The other aspect of digital farming is not even doing that, it's simply actually investing in pre-existing farming
Farms.
operations, which is things that, again, we can easily facilitate,
Yeah.
and all these kind of things. So it's a great way to tap into the agri boom on a passive level. And also, you're in the agri sector. Look at the amount of money you thought you would need, and look at where it's gone.
It takes a lot.
It's very capital
And
intensive.
the other thing is, it is a risky endeavor,
Yeah.
especially here. I think in time it will get better, but at the moment it can be very risky. So it's how are you mitigating those risks? And this is why, if you don't have either a trusted person or organization really supporting you to oversee an agricultural actual operationally, it can be very, very difficult.
Yes, you can't do agric pass. I mean, you can't do agric like you start in, then you leave. You think your team will just. It's not, unfortunately, a lot of so with digital farming, the idea is that an organization like TG Africa has the team, has the land, all these kinds of things. You're deciding what you want to farm based on what makes sense to farm anyway, and what your budget allows you to do. And it's more a matter of, so for some people, it's a simple thing like they do cash crops. Let's say they invest 10,000. At the end of the year, the harvest, whatever the revenue is, they get paid, and the organization gets its compensation.
Yeah.
You see, so it's a great way to tap into agric in a less risky way, but also it's very much less hassle.
Yeah.
Let's be honest.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so finally, last but not the least, why don't you tell people about the investors community that we are looking to launch in June?
Yeah, so, obviously our work is all about encouraging more investment on the continent. And the reason we're having these conversations is because we've realized that, unfortunately, diasporans are being told to be active investors. And if that is the only option on the table, we are not going to see the transformation that can happen when diaspora capital is efficiently allocated here. Because most people, they might like the idea. You can tell them as much as possible how great it is, this sector, that sector. But if the only option to investing in Africa is by you coming here and starting a business, unfortunately, most people are not going to do it. So,
and it's not even advisable.
It's not advisable either. So over the years, our work has been about how can we create a passive investment product that can basically allow diasporans to build wealth in Africa and contribute to African development. I'm sure we'll have an episode about the investors community, but fundamentally, the investors community is designed to be attracted to diasporans who are thinking about retirement planning, financial freedom, or
legacy
building, who understand they themselves are amateurs. They don't know that much about investing, but they understand the importance of them investing. They like the idea of contributing to African development, and they have a low to medium risk tolerance. So they are not necessarily trying to make extraordinary returns. They are trying to make stable and predictable returns. So in the investors community, that is what the investors community as an organization is there to do. There's lots of components to it. We can go into detail in another episode, but fundamentally, and when we talk about returns, again, stable and predictable returns in an African context is about 20 to 30%. So the investors community is structured to provide members of the community consistent returns at that rate. Within an African context, if your risk tolerance is low to medium, then you shouldn't really expect to be making higher than that. So we basically have created a simple structure where there is a requirement you have to go through to become a member, and we'll go into details in that another episode. But fundamentally, all you have to decide is how much you want to invest. The minimum requirement is $500 a year. That is the minimum capital requirement. Yeah, so when we look at the minimum capital requirements as well to be part of the investors community is, I guess, about 6,000 cities, 5 to 6,000 cities a year, or 500 cities a month, which is the dollar equivalent of $50 a month. And
Now probably a bit less
and
because
$600
for the year.
So again, the reason we did it that way is accessible. Some of the investors are going to be higher, lower, but we wanted to create something that all the way from young diasporans to mature diasporans have that exposure. So yes, but I'm sure we'll go into detail in a lot of these things. But yes, in a nutshell, the investors community is created to be attractive to passive investors, because simply all you need to do is make your monthly or annual contributions. And secondly, how is the oversight component in place? And again, we'll go into a lot more detail, but we've invested in our own investor management platform, which basically means that remotely any investor will be able to monitor the activities of the investors community and also manage their own portfolio to see how much they've invested, what they have been given historically, all of that kind of thing. It's an investor management system that we have invested in to address the oversight component. So yes, a diasporan who has invested in the investors community does not need to be boots on the ground. Because that transparency and capacity to oversee the investment is put in place virtually and remotely via leveraging technology and our investment platform.
And people can also have details of the companies
who have been invested in, their profiles, all that kind of thing. And there's even a messaging feature, instant messaging feature to communicate with a team, like you can communicate on WhatsApp. So yes, we'll go into a lot more detail in it. But another reason why it will be very attractive to passive diaspora investors is because of actually how we are going to be investing, because it would already give you exposure to the financial markets, and it will also give you exposure to the agri space. Because the agri space is going to be a big component of our investment philosophy and guidelines. But the financial markets, both African stocks and bonds, will be a heavy component. We can't go into details about our specific investment strategy because that's our intellectual property, and it's only privy to members to have that information. But the general idea is that the portfolio will be a combination of agribusinesses and financial assets like stocks, bonds, and things like that.
Okay.
Which obviously, again, they fall within to the low to medium risk aspect of things. And like I said, that is the foundations of what the investors community is all about.
And I just want to add that the important thing for me when it comes to the investors community is tough. So we will talk a lot more specifically on the investors community another time. So
trying to actually invite people to join a journey with us, because this is something also that people need to understand about the investors community, but also Africa and what Africa needs is the investors community is following a development-led approach, which means we are not just trying to make money. We're trying to make money in a way with real development-led metrics that we use to monitor. So the investors community does not just measure its performance based on being able to make stable and predictable returns on the 20 to 30% range, but it's also the fact that there are development related metrics which we also hold ourselves to when we're investing. And finally it's about us coming together and practicing collective economic cooperation, because another thing about investing here in Africa, which has become very clear to us, is individually there is very limited what we can do. It's very, very limited what we can do. So if we're serious about tapping into the wealth opportunity here, we're going to have to invest in a collective level. Unfortunately, it's something that we as a community historically really struggle with. That is why we have to be very selective about. So yes, it's great the investor community exists, is going to exist, but unfortunately there is criteria for who can become a member because of the fact that we are practicing collective economic cooperation. And I'm hoping that the investors community can become the foundation for future collective investments that we diasporans do, because the opportunities here require large-scale capital, which none of us have individually. And additionally, that's not even how you're meant to invest. You're always meant to invest in a syndicate. That's what the Chinese do. That's what the Lebanese do. That's what the Indians do. So the investors community is about starting a new trend that us diasporans too, we are coming to Africa as a unit with a war chest. It's not me with my 50,000 or 100,000. I'm going to start my nice business, and it's just no. We're coming and we're building a war chest, and we are becoming serious players, just like the Lebanese, the Chinese, the Indians, because we have the financial might to do so.
Yeah. So again, like we always say, the level of remittances far surpasses everything. I mean, everything, anything anybody can bring to Africa. It can develop Africa in no time. So all we need to think about is we don't need to stretch ourselves. That same amount we send, just some of it towards investment. And especially passive investment is an easy way to go. It can give you good returns whilst you're still carrying on with your life without any disruption. So that's it for today. Thanks to AG for an inspiring conversation as always. And thanks to you, our cherished viewers and listeners, for tuning in. Do hit the subscribe button if you're not already subscribed, and do like and share to amplify our voices to create the positive change that we need. And don't forget to grab yourself a copy of our book, The Great Return, which is on Amazon in all forms. And if you're thinking of doing business or investing in Ghana or the rest of Africa, then we can help. Get in touch. Visit tgrafrica.com and book a consultation so we can discuss all forms of collaborations and partnerships, both with ourselves, TGR Africa, or with others. We can support you in that. And also for business and investment advice and guidance. And last but not least, to check out all the other great stuff we're doing and how you can get involved. See you in the next episode.